part 4 of the interior overview. Today we're going to be tackling the headliner. So at this point I have already done the A, B, and C pillars. They really weren't that bad. That's definitely where I would recommend starting. I would start with the smaller pieces and do the large headliner last. In total there's 8 small pieces, 3 on either side, the one for the garage controls and then the one for the moonroof shade, and there's also the main piece that covers the rest of the roof. So start with the smaller and more simple pieces and work your way up to the more complex pieces. You want to practice this. It's not difficult by any means. It's just nice to practice on something smaller so that A, if you mess it up and have to start over, it's less material wasted, and B, it's an easier piece to start on and you can kind of hone your craft as you go forward. More or less, this is what you're going to start with. I've already peeled this off. It comes off super easy. There's no effort. I didn't have any difficulty getting this off of any of the parts. You can see it's got this brown foam where it is starting to crumble and deteriorate, and some of it will come off on the fabric and some of it will stay. So you can see on this side you've still got the foam. This is after I've scraped a lot of it off. So this has all been scraped and this side has been scraped and lightly sanded. So I lightly sanded it just to get rid of everything I possibly could. You want the glue to bond directly to the plastic as best as possible. You can see how stained it is. It used to be white and now it's this brownish yellow. But this should be more than enough of a surface for you to bond to. You're going to spray the adhesive on this and on the fabric, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then sandwich them together. So if you've ever done anything with rubber cement, it's a lot like that. Here's an A pillar I've already done. You can see if I lay the old fabric on it, just how dingy and gross and different the color is. So it's definitely a worthwhile investment as far as money is worth. You're going to invest a lot of time in this. I would say you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15 man hours. If you wanted to do this in a weekend, you're going to have to start as soon as you get home on Friday night, and you're going to power through most of the weekend and then getting it all installed back in the car. It's going to be a lot of effort, but the money invested is really minimal. It's about $100. I got 2 cans of 3M headliner and fabric adhesive. Don't just get a regular spray adhesive. This is specifically designed for this application. Just spend a little extra money and get exactly what you need. You don't want this to sag in 3 months and all this effort to be wasted. The fabric itself was $70. I got it offline. I'll put a link down in the description. This is a time where if you want to change colors, you can do that. So if you want to go to a different color interior, or you don't like the color of your headliner and you want to change that, now's the time to do it. Some people upgrade to Alcantara. I just went with the same exact gray, replace it. It's going to look exactly like factory, or at least that's the idea. Aside from the adhesive and the fabric, you're going to need some really stiff bristle brushes to scrape off all the foam. They worked really well when I was scraping off the main headliner. I also used one of these putty knives, but it's one of the thicker ones. It's not one of the really flexible ones. This one's pretty stiff, so it did a good job of scraping under it and I didn't have to fight it the whole time. And then I just grabbed a bunch of binder clips out of my office, and they worked really well for holding fabric in specific weird places. So it sticks pretty well if you let it sit for just a little bit. Give it about 5 minutes for it to tack up and put the 2 pieces together. They stick pretty well, and even on really sharp, like 180-degree folds, they hold down pretty well. But certain places, it's nice to have the extra binder clip there just to know that you're going to get it into the smallest tiny contour. Make sure you keep these pieces of fabric as you tear them off. This, it's not that big a deal. It's just a square, but one for the sunshade, it's just a rectangle, not that big of a deal. But for some of the weird pieces like the A pillar, the B pillar, C pillar, you want kind of a weird sort of parallelogram shape. It's a really good idea. Lay that down on the fabric, trace it, give yourself about an extra inch or 2 around the edges, because A, you're not going to lay it down on the part perfectly the first time. So if it's a little bit off on the angle, you can still fold it around all the edges. And B, the roll of fabric I have a ton of extra fabric. The amount of fabric I have, if I had 2 of those rolls, I could do 3 cars with it. So I have a lot of extra fabric here. So don't try and scrimp and save and make it really small. It's better to have more and cut off the extra than it is to waste that whole piece of fabric because it was too small. So here is the main headliner piece. You can see it's still brownish gray, but I was able to get almost all of that material off. On the A, B, and C pillars, for whatever reason, it doesn't have the foam like this. Instead, it's almost like a different type of fabric was used. It left a different finish that was just fabric, and I can glue directly to that, so you do not have to scrape off the A, B, and C pillars. But on the headliner pieces, anything that was on the roof, you're gonna have to scrape it off. This is where your putty knife comes in. It scrapes really well. You get a big wide, what is this, 3 inches wide all the way across. It worked really well. I would just scrape it, vacuum, and then when I got down to this, I would take the stainless steel brush, scrub it really well, scrub all the way across. Do that 2 or 3 passes, blowing it off with a leaf blower in between. It worked really well. It's really clean. I'm happy with it. I'm going to give it a light sand, and then all you do is spray the adhesive on, give it 2 or 3 medium coats on both this and the fabric. Let them sit for about 10-15 minutes depending on the temperature. If it's hotter outside, let them sit less time. Colder outside, let them sit more time, and then you can stick them together. For the smaller pieces, it's pretty easy to do yourself. For this big piece, it's better to have a second person just to help you come over it nice and even and lay it straight down and work in all the nooks and crannies. Don't worry about cutting holes in it. Cut the holes once it's glued on. You can cut from the back and get a nice perfect cut. So let's get started with the time lapse. You may have noticed that I'm changing directions as I'm spraying. So at the back, first I did up and down, and then I did side to side, and then I ended with a diagonal. So that way I'm spraying from every angle. I'm trying to get as much even coverage as I possibly can. I want glue everywhere. I don't want any dry spots on the headliner. So that's the headliner and the fabric done. Everything's sprayed. There's about 3 heavy coats on the headliner and 2 heavy coats on the fabric. That should be more than enough to keep them stuck together for a very, very long time. Word of advice, when you're done with the can, don't throw the first one away. Keep this cap just in case the other one gets clogged with glue. As long as the cap's so good, keep it. When you're done using each can, turn it upside down, spray it. It'll clean out this. You're gonna wipe off the little nozzle here, and then you can keep this cap and it'll be good in the future. Because if the cap goes bad and you don't have an extra one, that whole can is wasted. One side done, I'm going to go ahead and spray along the edge on all the other sides so that I can fold the fabric over onto this backing here and have a nice lip all the way around to make sure that no matter what, this fabric's going to stay up. All of these openings, like the one on the right side of the screen where you have the security device, or the ones on the left side of the screen for the vanity lights, the best way I found to get those to look clean from the underside and easily roll up, you can see I put a slit from the corner in and made a triangle. So I made a triangle on each end and then connected the tips of each triangle with one line with a razor blade so that you could fold this triangle in, this triangle, and then these oblong triangles. It gives a nice clean corner from the underside, and it also nicely folds and pulls the fabric top that's underneath. So you've got a nice 180-degree connection. There's glue up here, glue in the back side of the fabric. It's not going anywhere. Before I did all the cuts, I would spray it, do a quick little coat with the adhesive, so I had fresh adhesive up on the top and fresh adhesive on the fabric. Could fold it over, stick it. You could use some of the binder clips if you needed to, but I really didn't need it. It would stick really well, and it looks super clean from the underside, especially if you don't go quite to the corner with the cut. You leave a little bit of extra. When you roll it, it'll pull that corner up. So especially with the security device, it looks really clean. This was a little bit more difficult. Again, I cut in the same way, but you're going to have to leave not quite as much because I can't fold a bunch of excess over this lip here. There's only so much room, especially tucking it in between these little metal brackets. So what I did was when I cut it down, I'd have to pick it and roll it over. It was kind of difficult. You got to strain with it a little bit and work with it, but once you got it rolled over and pulled it taut, it was not going anywhere. So it looks super clean, especially from the underside, but it's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to have to worry about it pulling back out. I think it's easiest to start with this back corner here because this is the one that you're least likely to see. So practice here, then go to that corner, and then do the front two corners, because these are the ones that if there's a problem, you're going to see it the most. All right, so here we are, all the pieces are done. I've got the headliner over there on the left with the little security device in the middle, the A, B, and C pillars. I did not recover the sun visors. The way they're attached, you can't just undo it and redo it, but I was able to clean them up, and as you can see, they blend in perfectly, so they cleaned up extremely well. And to be honest, I'm really happy with how it all turned out. It is not 100% factory perfect. I am not claiming that I am an upholsterer, but it turned out really well. There's a few tiny wrinkles in places, but how often do people really look at your roof? It's going to be so much cleaner than before, and the fact that most of mine was peeling and falling off in certain places, especially in the A, B, and C pillars. So I wanted to just replace the A, B, and C pillars. I didn't really have that much sag in the headliner, but it was dirty, and if I replaced a part, you would notice. To be honest, if I could go back in time and not do this, I might not do it. It was really hard, especially the main headliner piece. All the small pieces really weren't that bad, especially once you got used to it. The headliner, especially the areas where the handles attach to the roof, it was really difficult. So take your time. This would be a lot easier with a second person that could kind of hold it out of the way while you work it into all those deep little complexes. It's not like working with vinyl where you can just heat it up and stretch it out and it can go around sharp contours. You really have to plan ahead, and it was a lot easier once I had done it. So the fourth handle looks a lot better than the first handle does. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the most difficult thing I have ever done related to cars, and my 350Z has been through top to bottom, and mechanical things fine, but it requires a lot of finesse and skill and forethought, and once you mess up, there's really no going back. You just have to start over. But it is done, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Overall, I would give it an A-. I think it looks really good. It's not going to win any car shows, but as a daily driver car, it's gonna look a lot cleaner. It's gonna not smell like the old one probably did. So overall, I'm very happy with it. If your headliner looks decent, don't do this. If your headliner's falling off, go ahead, bite the bullet. You got nothing to lose. And worst case scenario, if you completely mess it up and have to start over, it's only $100 worth of materials with the 2 cans of adhesive and the 1 roll of fabric. And you're gonna have a lot of extra fabric left over when you're done. So if you mess up one of the smaller parts like an A pillar or B pillar and just gotta tear it off and start over, it's really not that bad. So I'm gonna go put all these parts back in the car, and once everything is back assembled, I'll give you guys a few beauty shots just to show you how much better the interior of this car looks with all the new pieces we put in, all the cleaning we did. It's not quite a new car, but the interior looks a million times better. I am so happy with it, and I am very excited to get to drive this car every day. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next week. So let's roll those beauty shots.